My dear brothers and sisters in Christ, today the church honors St. Lawrence, Deacon and Martyr of the Holy Roman Church. He was one of the 7 deacons ordained by Pope Sixtus to serve the church in Rome. And during that time, persecution broke out under Emperor Valerian, and the Pope himself was subject to that same martyrdom. Lawrence was put in charge of what we call the goods of the church. And so he decided, because of the persecution, to sell most of the things and use it in the church and for the poor people. So the emperor got the news of it, because one legend has it that he used a lot of the money to buy sacred vessels of gold for worship in the church. So when the emperor got the news, he summoned him and he said, "Why did you spend money to do all these things? God doesn't need these things. Bring them to me. Bring all the treasures of the church to me." And Lawrence respectfully said to the emperor, "I need time to put everything together. And when I'm ready, I'll come and bring the treasures to you." So he went to the streets of Rome and gathered the poor people, the lame, the blind, and those who were poor. And he brought them to the emperor, and he said to them, "You ask me to bring to you the treasures of the church. These are the treasures of the church." Of course, that infuriated the emperor, and Lawrence also suffered martyrdom. In the first reading, we see St. Paul admonishing us to provide bread for food and reach out in giving to the poor and those who are disadvantaged in society. He says that when we do that, there is no limit to the blessings which God can send upon us. God will make sure that you always have all that we need. So if we sow, we shall reap the fruits. And Lawrence exhibited that great compassion in reaching out, so that the church's aim will be to serve. We see that also in the gospel of today. Jesus addresses his disciples and he says, "Unless a grain of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains just a single grain. But when it dies, it brings new life. The one who loves his life or her life will lose it, and the one who loses up his or her life will find it." It's an invitation to all of us to remember that the goods that God has blessed us with, we are also called to share with one another. It is in the beauty of sharing that we find the joy. Now, to share something, I don't necessarily have to be very rich. I can share my time, I can share my talent, and I can also share my treasure. And Lawrence stood for that and always reached out to the poor. So as we honor this man who chose to die for the poor and suffered martyrdom, we are also called by the gospel of today to die a little to ourselves. The symbol of the grain of wheat reminds us that unless I'm prepared to die to my sin, I will not be able to rise up in new life. And so just as the grain falls to the ground and dies and produces new life, God is inviting us to die to our sin, so that in that death we shall spring up to the hope of new life. May St. Lawrence be our intercessor, and may all those who are called Lawrence have a happy feast day, and may he continue to intercede for the church, so that, in the words of Pope Francis, the church will always reach out to the poor. The church is not a profit-making organization. The church is there to serve. So let us serve in our own little ways. And we know that in the words of St. Paul, God will bless us abundantly. May we always serve today and every day of our lives.